Welcome back. Namaskar. So actually, just now in the meditation that I gave, I tried to break it down into the different components, which I'll explain shortly. But right now, I want to give you a little background as to how we're having this class. Well, we are exploring 7 secrets of success. And right now we are on number 2. The second secret of success that we're talking about is pursuing universal truth. And when you say that, I know it sounds like this is kind of that doesn't make sense, to pursue universal truth because, well, everybody is having their own subjective experience. So therefore, everybody is perceiving truth differently. So how could there be a universal truth? So I totally understand that. And the thing is that it's true. All of us are these unit forms of consciousness. So I can feel my emotions. I can remember my past. I can see things from my perspective. It's true. I'm having a subjective experience in my existence. So I can't say for sure to what extent other people have that experience, right? But I definitely know that they do. I mean, I believe that they do. They confirm that they do. It just can't be measured, quantified. So this is where Western scientists, as they explore consciousness, they get kind of stuck here. They don't know where to go from there. But one thing that we should be able to understand is that though we're having a subjective experience, we are in relationship to something else all the time. So it's not just me being here, it's me in the world. When I am talking to somebody else, now I'm in relationship with that person in conversation. When I'm, like I had a beautiful experience, beautiful privilege to hike through the Himalaya mountains in Nepal. So I was in communion with those mountains during that time. And so I was having a subjective experience, but it's in relationship to the mountains, to the people I was walking with. I was on the trail with. So if that is true about our subjective experience, that we are at the same time in relationship to something else always, then I realize when I'm with another person that they are looking at me. It's not just me looking at them, they are looking back at me. When I pet a dog, I realize that I'm not just looking at the dog is also looking at me. And when we think about our place in the universe, it's not just me looking at the universe, it's the universe also looks back at me. So the Supreme Consciousness, God, however you'd like to call it, is in relationship with you, is looking back at you. So therefore, you see, this subjective experience doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's in relationship to other things. And so that's what we mean by pursuit. The pursuit of the universal truth, the pursuit of consciousness experiencing itself as consciousness and in relationship to consciousness. Not to other, but to consciousness. So pursuing universal truth means not just to pursue that ultimate truth that is the supreme consciousness, but to understand that supreme consciousness is in every living being. So when the dog is looking back at you, you know that the supreme consciousness is looking back at you in the form of that dog. When another person is looking back at you, you know that the supreme consciousness is looking back at you in the form of that other person. So, and even when you're looking at yourself, to be in relationship with self is to understand oneself as consciousness as well. Who am I? So, even that kind of thinking it prompts you to look within. And then that it's almost like consciousness asking itself the same questions, because you are consciousness as well. So so having said that, our discussion today is about how to cultivate this pursuit of universal truth. And that is through, this understanding, this relationship we're in with the world, but also the practice of meditation helps us to do that, to explore that universal consciousness within ourselves. So meditation is one of the best ways to pursue universal truth. Now, today I want to review basically what is it that we do in our meditation, and how these key components, key ingredients to it, is what leads to successful tantric, expansive, transcendental type of meditation. And by me using transcendental, we don't practice transcendental meditation, but I like that word. It's a beautiful sentiment toward what your meditation is doing, allowing you to transcend, but we would say more allowing us to expand. So a better word is expansion. Meditation is an expansion of the mind, an expansion toward liberation, an expansion of your mind, until it ultimately expands so much that it just kind of liberates itself. There's no more a bound unit mind. That mind becomes infinite. So let's talk about then those key components. And I would like to share with you an image. All right, so our meditation and tantric meditation, it basically covers the 8 limbs of yoga. You may have heard of these as being components of Raj Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, etc. They all, none of those people or founders of those traditions invented these practices. These are ancient practices that go back to the first tantrikas, about 7,000 years ago, even before Shiva, because Shiva would be the one to systematize these practices into Tantra. And then later they would be systematized into the 8 limbs of Ashtanga Yoga, etc. So in these limbs of yoga, in our meditation, we endeavor to practice each of these things, especially starting at asana. Those first 2, yama and niyama, I'll talk about now. So yama is a whole system of, let's say, guidelines for how to work, how to live in the world. And then niyama is a whole system of ethical guidelines for how to treat oneself. In yama, there's one principle called Brahmacharya. Brahmacharya is this practice that you kind of do outside of meditation. So, and that is the practice of seeing everything as an expression of the divine. So that sort of pursuit for universal truth, the practice of that we can also call Brahmacharya. And then in niyama, there is one principle called Ishvara Pranidhyan. And Ishvara Pranidhyan is the principle of accelerating your path toward the supreme consciousness. So, like I was saying before we close the meditation, we're like all on this journey. We're all trying to reach the ultimate desideratum. We're all trying to get to our culminating point of existence. And so when you start to meditate and you do a mantra, now that mantra accelerates your journey. The more you repeat the mantra, the closer you get to supreme consciousness. So that's Ishvara Pranidhyana. So out of those two limbs, yama and niyama, those two, there's more to talk about in those two subjects, but those two are very much connected to our meditation. Brahmacharya and Ishvara Pranidhyana. Now, we can begin with asana. So this is now actually sitting for meditation. So asana means to put the body in a comfortable position. And asanas are the yogic postures that we practice. All the yogic asanas, Gomukhasana, wonderful practices. The sun salutations, even those postures that have been evolved from the traditional yoga to newer schools. Anyways, the hatha yoga, right? The postural yoga. But postural yoga is not just used for the stretching. Actually, the sitting position of meditation is a yoga posture. So, the most like hardcore posture, sitting position is, of course, the full lotus, right? The full lotus position, where you're sitting cross-legged and you got both feet actually crossed and resting on the thighs. That's very hard. You need to be very flexible to do that. If you can't reach that, then just one foot on one thigh or on an ankle is fine, just having the legs crossed. Of course, if you can't even sit down on the floor like that, then you can sit in a chair, no problem. Have your feet nice and firm on the floor. Put your hands on your lap, keep the back straight. It's okay if you cannot sit on the floor in those traditional yogic postures. But the whole point is that you're using the body. Now, I know some people like to do walking meditation, and there's so many new, derivations of meditations now. It's kind of like hatha yoga. Hatha yoga comes from certain schools of yoga in the past, from a couple thousand years ago, from Abhinavagupta and other sort of saints that we know have systematized postural yoga. But then just in the 20th century alone, you had so many new schools of yoga. I mean, like Bikram yoga and other schools that now they basically incorporated gymnastics into traditional yogic postures and created new forms and new postures. It's endless, right? And the purists would say, well, just stick to the old postures. And that's what we teach. That's what we do. We do the traditional yogic postures, but there's many derivatives. Nothing wrong with those derivatives, but it's good to know the difference. And with meditation, the same thing. We have these traditional forms like I'm going to talk about now, but now there's all types of new meditations, including something like walking meditation. So then the thing is that if you're walking or you want to do running meditation, like when the body is in movement, the mind is in movement. So if you want to concentrate the mind on your meditation, then you want to be still. You could still do your walking like a meditation, your running like a meditation. But if you want to, like when the Buddha became enlightened, he wasn't doing walking meditation. He wasn't doing running. He was sitting for meditation, because the body has to be nice and still and comfortable with no agitation in order for the mind to take off. So that's why then, as you remember from the guide that I did, you were sitting comfortably for meditation, hands crossed like this on your lap. Now you may see people who have their hands like this on their knees, and some people are doing this, okay, or this, and they're doing these different mudras with their hands as their hands are. So you see, again, incorporating the body, but keeping the body still. And each of those little differences, they could be for more advanced meditations. They could be for a different type of meditation. Even to have the hands like this is for a very advanced meditation on the thighs. So we here do a very substantial type of meditation, but not as advanced as others, obviously, because we, in our program, we introduce you to this, but then we have a system for how you can get more advanced lessons. Okay, so that's why for us, this is all we do. Just put the hands here on the lap, and doesn't mean we're doing anything less. You can still achieve the goal of meditation if your hands are like that. But this type of stuff is for more advanced ones, is all we're saying. So the body is quite important, and we keep the back straight. We keep the back nicely aligned because we believe in the system of the chakras, and we believe in the flow of the breath, like the Ida and the Pingala through the two nostrils. This flow that you enter from the left nostril, it comes down through the channel, the Shushumna, to do a certain function, and then the right nostril to do another function. And as actually Western scientists, as they study parasympathetic breathing, they're finding correlations to yogic principles like the Ida and the Pingala. And that's fascinating to see when scientists are confirming things that yogis have done for thousands of years. So for there to be nice alignment of the breath, you keep the spine straight. Okay? So that's asana. And I also mentioned during the meditation that I gave that, if you get lost, come back to your posture. You might find that, I'm not concentrating, I'm not thinking, I'm feeling down. You might, if you're in that moment, notice, well, how are you sitting? If you just straighten the back, could that make a little difference? It might. It could help you a little bit more in that moment to remotivate yourself, or to resituate yourself and try again. Get back into the flow of your meditation. So posture helps, body helps. That's why asana is one of the limbs of yoga and is an important part of your meditation. Then we have pranayama. Pranayama is breath control. So as soon as we situate the body in our guided meditation, as you remember, I have you focus on the breath, focusing on the breath, controlling the breath to a certain degree, controlling the inhalation and exhaling longer than the inhalation so that you're slowing down the breath, because there's a connection between breath and mind. When you're out of breath, you can't think. You can't think at all. If somebody's running a marathon and they made it to the finish line and you try to ask them questions, they cannot think. They cannot think at all. Maybe they're in pain. They just can't think because the breath is so fast. So maybe when you want to have a serious conversation with somebody, get a feel for how fast they're breathing. If they're like this, they're agitated and they're not going to listen very well. They might be angry. Okay? Sometimes that happens. Have you noticed when you're fighting with somebody, your heart starts to beat faster. You start to breathe harder. In those moments, you're not so receptible. You're not really thinking clearly. And when you try to talk to other people, it's best to try to calm them down if they look that way, because at that moment they could be very defensive. So the breath is important, and one practice I like to share with people regarding the breath, because you see, for all of these 8 limbs of Ashtanga Yoga, there's you can go from first grade to PhD. There's yogic practices that can be very advanced, yet they're about the same principle, like breath. So we do those basic things with the breath, like slowing down the breath, exhalation is longer, concentrating on the breath, following the cycle, paying attention to the pause in between the breaths. So those are what we're doing at our level here. But you could do more advanced things with the breath, like more advanced forms of pranayama, which I don't recommend that you do unless you found a teacher. Suppose you would find these practices in a book or on the internet or something, like alternate nostril breathing, pranayama, and different types of withholding of the breath, kumbhaka, which is withholding of the breath. So there's many advanced techniques revolving around the same principle, and that goes for everything, even for asana, because to sit for meditation is a very simple asana, but you've seen people do the advanced shoulder stands and headstands and things like that. Okay, now so that's the breath, and the breath is very important with meditation. Very, very important. It's kind of like a bridge between mind and body. Okay, and mind and soul too. So we have pranayama, then there's prachahara. Prachahara means withdrawal of the senses, to withdraw. So that's why I always ask you in your meditation, on your next exhalation, withdraw from the world. On the next exhalation, withdraw from the body. On your next exhalation, withdraw from your mind. On the next exhalation, try to be in your consciousness. So you see, it's like in the meditation that I'm teaching you, that we're doing here, we are going through all of the 8 limbs of Ashtanga Yoga and in that regard, it is no different. It is just as powerful as anything a much more advanced yogi could have done. Although, of course, their techniques they're advanced for a reason too, but this is the basics for success. So we're withdrawing, okay? Withdrawing from the outside world. And you'll find that there's always, in these 8 limbs, it's not so much like linear, like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. It's good to understand it in a linear fashion, but a lot of times it's circular. They correspond to other things, okay? They correspond to other things in different ways. So, yeah. Now, we do a very kind of basic form of withdrawal, but just to give you a little more insight as to something a little more advanced, there's also particular techniques for how to withdraw from the body that I used to actually teach here, but I stopped guiding it that way. I used to, for example, do the guide here where we would visualize light. We'd visualize that you were surrounded by light in the beginning. And then that light starts to spread and it kind of touches your feet and it covers your ankles, your knees, your leg, your thighs. It starts going up your torso until finally you visualize that your whole body disappears into the light, is covered by the light. So that's one example of like withdrawing from the body. So we used to do that a little more, with a little more intention. And like that, there could be other techniques for how to withdraw from the body that are more advanced than that, more and sometimes more effective. But to get those techniques, you have to. I invite you to go through our system. Okay. At the end, I will summarize how to do that. So there's many advanced forms to do these, many different techniques to do these same principles, like I've been saying. Let's go on now to another limb. Then there is Dharana. So Dharana is concentration. Concentration. So just think about it now. We have the body is in place, the breath is controlled, we've let go of the outside world. Now we're ready to do the meditation. Now we're ready to concentrate. So how did we represent Dharana in our meditation today? We represented Dharana in a few ways. When you concentrate on the breath, that's concentration. I was telling you, visualize the beginning of the inhalation, the middle, the end, the pause, beginning of the exhalation, the middle of it, that it's longer than the inhalation, the end of it, and then the pause. All of that is a process of concentration. We're like warm-ups. These are concentration warm-ups for the real for the big prize that you want to concentrate on later in the meditation, and that's the mantra. But we do those warm-ups, and notice how now your concentration is on the breath. So now you're coupling dharana with pranayama. Like I said, these two are not necessarily linear. They work together. They can be circular. So to couple those two, dharana and pranayama, gives you even greater power, greater effect for your meditation. And then eventually you're concentrating on the mantra, Baba Nam Kevalam, Baba Nam Kevalam. And in a more advanced meditation, you'll have another mantra that's shorter, that's just 2 syllables. And that mantra can be easily interwoven with your breath. Inhaling the first syllable, like imagine if that mantra was Buddha. And I'm not saying that's a mantra that you might be prescribed, just as an example. Inhaling Bu, exhaling Da. Bu, Da, right? So then we would see another marriage of dharana and pranayama working together. And this concentration is supposed to be it's not supposed to last forever. Some people might think, oh my God, you're teaching me tantric meditation, mantra meditation, that I have to repeat a mantra? It sounds like torture. Who wants to sit there and repeat something over and over again, right? But we yogis know that that's just the beginning. When you start to concentrate on the mantra and its meaning, you will go into like a portal. You will eventually, you'll enter a flow state where now it's effortless. In the beginning, it takes effort. Meditation in the beginning takes effort. Sitting correctly, breathing correctly, withdrawing correctly, repeating mantra correctly. But then eventually, through that effort, you go into a flow state. And that flow state now is what takes you into dhyan. And what happens in dhyan is that you are entering now in relationship to the goal of your meditation. So we practice a very spiritual type of meditation. And so who are we meditating on? The Supreme Consciousness, right? The Supreme Consciousness. So that's why actually I have you kind of try to do dhyan before dharana. So before I guide repetition of the mantra, I encourage you to be entering in relationship with the Supreme or infinite love. So thinking about the Supreme. That's why we do kirtan in the beginning too. It's kind of like we're skipping ahead and doing the dhyan and the dharana and dhyan, singing the mantra, concentrating on it, but mainly trying to feel the feeling and enter into relationship with the Supreme. So that dhyan is when you are in the flow, you can see the Supreme, you can feel the Supreme, you feel embraced by the Supreme, you feel like you're embracing the Supreme, and it's effortless. It's like a dance that's happening now. Now you're feeling the bliss of the meditation, dhyan, okay? And dhyan can be more advanced in other meditations, like I said, but dhyan is something, and all of these things have their practical side. I didn't say, what's the practical application of Prachahara, or in other words, worldly applications. these same limbs of Ashtanga yoga can be practiced internally through meditation, but we also practice them in the outside world. Dharana is very simple, very easy example. You don't just concentrate on your mantra, you concentrate when you're doing your homework, you concentrate when you are paying bills, when you're watching something on television. So dhyan is kind of like when you are out and you are walking through the woods. And at first it may have felt like, oh, I don't know if I'm up for the hike. My body's kind of tired. But once you actually start and you're in nature, now there's no better place to be in. You just love it there. It's just so great. Now you've entered a dhyan type state, an effortless kind of state. One of the ways that I used to experience dhyan before I ever knew there was such a concept was actually when making love, having sex. I remember I used to think about that at times and say, isn't it interesting that if I'm ever making love with my partner, in those moments, I never feel like I want to be anywhere else. I just want to be right there. I get into such a zone and flow state. I remember feeling that. And I was like, it's amazing. Little did I know when that insight came to me one day as I was reflecting on having sex. Little did I know that what I was actually reflecting on was the dhyan state. And and that's not the only way to experience dhyan, by no means. You experience dhyan when you are writing. I talked about, hiking and being in nature. Sometimes also in a more crude way. If you thought sex was crude, this is more crude. You're watching a movie. How is it that you can watch a movie for 2 hours and be completely concentrated and not feel the time pass and just be in a flow? Because of the dhyan, our natural capacity toward dhyan. The marriage of dhyan and concentration, where after a while the concentration is now on autopilot. So it's beautiful to enter the dhyan stage in whatever it is that you do, in your craft, while you make pottery, while you write songs, when you teach, when you're at work, you can enter into a flow state. But the most subtle forms of dhyan is, of course, when you are in the flow and in communion with the Supreme Consciousness. And then the last limb is Samadhi. Samadhi is now the unification. It's now after dhyan that you've been effortlessly drifting toward the Supreme, you lose yourself. I'm not there anymore. Sometimes you can feel that. Those are the feelings of Samadhi, to be completely unified in the Supreme. So isn't it interesting that we first enter into relationship with the world, with consciousness, right? As we pursue universal truth. But what's going to end up happening there is that relationship is not going to last. What's going to end up happening is you are going to disappear into that consciousness. And I know I've just maybe terrified some of you, because I hear it from many yogis. They hold back sometimes when they're meditating. Oh, sometimes I feel like I'm gonna just, if I keep concentrating like this, if I keep in this flow, I'm gonna disappear. And they stop them. Maybe I'll stop meditating because there's too much bliss. They're getting too close. And what I recommend that you do is don't stop. Don't stop in those moments. Keep going, keep merging. Do it until you lose yourself. Until you lose yourself. See what happens. Okay, So I hope that I was able to convey the technique of our practice, the beauty of our practice, the scientific, systematic nature of it that leads to success of our practice, and how our practice also allows you to discover and pursue universal truth. So now I'd love to hear your comments. Thank you for listening to that breakdown. And we'll close soon if there aren't any comments. Lots of love from Hitendra. Thank you, dear brother. There's the link for attendance. Katie, Andrea, if you're still here, I invite you to please fill out the attendance sheet. Ritva joined. Namaskar. Namaskar, Ritva. It's so wonderful to have you here. And Mira. Namaskar, Brother Gustavo. Namaskar, Mira. Where are you joining us from? Please tell us. And Saru from Nepal. Oh, I was just talking about Nepal. What a beautiful, beautiful country. Beautiful, beautiful people. One of the most beautiful places. And the Himalayas are there. The Buddha was born in Nepal. So many great things about Nepal. Alicia says, wow, thank you so much for this talk. Thank you, Alicia. Thanks for joining, bringing your energy. And glad you liked the talk. It's good to understand the technical aspects of our meditation. Arun says, nice talk, Ashtanga Yoga in less than an hour. Some say that some gurus require the students to study Yama and Niyama for 12 years before the students would be taught the other parts. Well, I wonder what if somebody could have done that to me. That's helpful. I wonder how my life would have been different if somebody had done that for me 12 years. Because Yama and Niyama are the ethical guidelines to yoga. So you can't just be practicing these meditation techniques and at the same time be out in the world, cheating people, hurting people. It's just not going to work. You're not going to be successful. You're not even in those times going to be doing your meditation correctly. You might be like some people that go to church on a Sunday and can sit through a sermon and have a good time, but then they're back in the world and they forget everything. Then they come back and there's no real growth there. So having those yamas and niyamas down is super important. I'm glad you said that, Arun, because we actually offer a free ebook to help break down all of those moral principles. And I agree with him. You need to nail that down to be successful in meditation, although to nail that down is a whole life. He says 12 years. Maybe if you concentrate just on that for 12 years, you'll make a lot of progress, but it takes a lifetime to master these things. So isn't it interesting too that these limbs, they don't exist in it's good to know them in a linear fashion and to pursue them in a linear fashion. But actually, as we're seeing, you're always kind of checking back and forth to each one. And you will always be bouncing back and forth from your yamas and niyamas to these practices. And hence why we make in a way, we are just trying to do it all at once. Okay. Thanks, Arun, for saying that. Then we have Mira, from the Philippines. Is it your first time, Mira? I think it is. I really hope you had a nice time and you'll join us next Saturday. How about we all send her hearts? Let's send Mira some hearts. Those of us that are here, welcoming hearts. Katie's still here. Thank you so much. Wonderful first experience. Thank you, Katie. I'm so happy that you joined. Please join our Facebook group. If you have Facebook, where's the link for that? This is for more engagement, more community, okay? If you join the Facebook group, we have questions there, discussions throughout the week. Let me just get that over for her and others, and then we're going to start to close. Okay. There's those hearts. Thank you so much for welcoming Mira, Alicia, Karen, Katie, Karen. She has an arsenal of hearts. And Ritva, Anushila. Those are some invisible hearts. Those are the best kind. That's pure consciousness. And there's the group. I posted the link. And there are more hearts from Arun. So thank you so much, folks. Let's close. My last announcement for you is today, at some point, I will be releasing a video on Tantra Thoughts, my YouTube channel, Tantra Thoughts. I'll just give you that link really fast. Tantra Thoughts, I have a new video now every Saturday there. And today's video is going to be about my journey in Tantra, how I came to this wonderful path that I was initiated into and that you all are a part of, and you are all becoming initiated into. We are the Tantrikas, okay, of our lives. So I'll be sharing that later today. Thanks, Karen. She says looking forward to it. And so I'm typing the address and then we will close. There it is, youtube.com Tantra Thoughts. Okay, namaskar. I love you and I look forward to seeing you next Saturday. Take care.